Board meeting to order. Monday, July 18, 2022. Adjourning the second third meditation.
All right, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gaffino.
Here.
Trustee Carroll.
Here.
Trustee Curtis. Trustee Gately.
Here.
Trustee Lowry.
Here.
Trustee Nedved.
Here.
Trustee Salazar.
Here.
All right, thank you. Audience comments. We have one person signed up. Would you like to come up to the podium and give your name and address? And
Good evening, Board, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Harold Thielman. I'm an adjacent property owner to the on the west side of North Aurora.
I want to get your address too. State your address, yeah.
3S976 Deer Oaks Road, North Aurora. I live due east of the Salt Dome. I understand that on July 5th there was a hearing to discuss a medical dispensary for marijuana in the new area that's being built by the hardware store, and I'm here to express my displeasure with that and to let you know where I stand on that and feel that it's not becoming of that area, primarily because there's a lot of housing in that area and some proposed housing that's due north of that area as well. And as an adjacent owner, as a property owner there, I see a lot of children that walk back and forth between the subdivisions behind us and then go over to Woodman's, McDonald's, and so forth. And I don't think that's an appropriate place to have a dispensary. So that's my opinion. Thank you for letting me express it.
Yep. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Gately.
Yes.
Trustee Lowry.
Yes.
Trustee Nedved.
Yes.
Trustee Salazar.
Yes.
Trustee Carroll.
Yes.
Trustee Curtis.
All right, thank you. Item 1, Steve.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a special event request for Worth Your Mile 10K run. This is the first one we've had that I can recall where someone is actually looking to use North Aurora Riverfront Park to have a start and stop of a race. The race would be a 10K run on Saturday, November 19th. There's a typo in the memo. It's because the original application was wrong. It said the 17th, but it's the Saturday the 19th of November. It's from 8 to 12 p.m. Start and finish would be at North Riverfront Park. They would use the Fox River Trail, go into Batavia, come back down, I believe, on the other side, starts under the bridge. So they never actually cross any roads according to the organizer of the event, always on the trail. The request needs a special event permit because they're having sound amplification before the hours we allow it on the weekends at 8 a.m. when they have it out here in the park, probably someone DJ announcements. Food truck will be on site for more than 2 hours using our parking lot. Because they're using village property, that's another reason they would need a special event permit. They plan to leave the park open. Their setup that's in the application basically leaves the park open for use throughout the day. They only need a very small section to set up their tents in the finish line.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll, please.
Trustee Lowry.
Yes.
Trustee Nedved.
Yes.
Trustee Salazar.
Yes.
Trustee Carroll.
Yes.
Trustee Curtis. Trustee Gately.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 2, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 2 is an ordinance approving a minor change to a planned unit development for the property located in Lot 2 in the Randall Road Commercial Center. The Randall Road Commercial Center was approved in 2001 as a PUD. The PUD was amended last year to accommodate Lot 2 development with a 66-unit apartment complex. We've actually been working with a developer who's looking to acquire that property and basically construct the same plan, the same layout, which they'll get into in their presentation tonight. Looking to assume the property and then add 9 units to the 66 units for a total of 75 units. And I just did a little bit of the math on some of the unit counts with respect to the change to the PUD. The change would result in 9 additional dwelling units. It would be a total decrease of 7 bedrooms, a total increase of 2 bathrooms, an estimated population increase of 6 people, which represents less than 5%, an increase of 17 parking spaces. We've reviewed the plans themselves, the elevations, the site plan, landscape plans. The proposed plans meet the PUD and the zoning ordinance provisions, so we did consider a minor change. Conservatively, this probably could have been considered a technical change, but given the additional unit count, we did it as a minor change, which can be approved by the village board without a plan commission hearing. So with that, I'll go ahead and invite you guys up if you want to go ahead and go through your presentation and show the plans.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Hughes. I'm with Next Generation Development. I've been in this room quite a
Jim,
Yes.
you'll have to speak into the microphone. I have a hearing
Okay,
issue.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Jim Hughes, Next Generation Development. I've been here on a number of occasions. We've done a lot of work in town. We did Randall Highlands. We built the hotel for Dermody's group. We've done a lot of work in town. We enjoy every bit of it here. It's a great sub-market for the rental community that we're doing. With me tonight, I have Mr. Jay Cox, who's with the architectural firm who did the design. So what we did was do you want to flip it or? Okay. So it's the exact same land plan. We haven't changed the land plan at all. We've got 4 buildings plus a clubhouse. What we did to change the unit count, the original conceptual architectural that Mr. Sorrentino had done showed in the bigger buildings 3-bedroom units of 1,500 square feet each, which is a huge apartment number for 1,500 square feet. So we took that and we cut it down to 2 one-bedroom units of 750 square feet. So that's how we picked up the extra units within the same unit, within the same building count. We increased the parking to accommodate the 2 stalls per door that is required by the village. We redid the garbage locations and stuff like that, all real boring stuff that I really don't want to get into. But it's the exact same land plan. It's just a different architectural look. We're very comfortable what we've done here, and we look forward to hopefully getting a nod from you tonight for the minor change to the PUD, and we can get going on this. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those from a developer standpoint, or Jay can answer anything architecturally, because they lose me as soon as they start sending their bills.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
Trustee Nedved?
Yes.
Trustee Salazar?
Yes.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis?
Thanks so much
Yep,
for your
thank you.
time.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Buck.
Yep. All right, item 3, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 3 and 4 are associated with petition 22-02, which are the Springs and North Aurora apartment complex. As we all know, this project is located north of Orchard Road, south of West Mooseheart Road, and east of Deer Path Road. The developer is looking to install 260 apartment units. This has gone through the process. It's been to the public hearing with the Plan Commission on March 1st this year with a unanimous recommendation from the Plan Commission. We did bring the site plan back for discussion before the Committee of the Whole on March 7th of this year. The board was supportive of the development and also to the relocation of the clubhouse that occurred. If you recall, there were some discussions about the clubhouse being too close to the property off of Deer Path. At that point in time, they had moved it further to the east to move it away from that property. In its place right now was a detention pond. That received support. Brought it back with a traffic study, a draft annexation amendment, a draft PUD amendment for discussion on April 4th before the Committee of the Whole, both receiving support. We did have the public hearing for the First Amendment to the annexation agreement on April 18th of 2022. Again, no public comment or no discussion from the village board. A lot of this remains the same. The preliminary development plans have been included, including the site plan, the engineering, the elevations. The reason why there was a little bit of a gap between the last April date and now is just the developer needed time to work some of the actual semantics out with the property owner, more or less with respect to the connector road, which is the road that bisects the north and south property line. The connector road, per a 2011 intergovernmental agreement with KDOT, was supposed to be 80 feet wide. But a year later, in the annexation agreement, it was said to be only 66 feet wide. So we had to honor the original 2011 IGA and put it back to 80 feet. So the connector road itself would be widened. And per the annexation agreement language, the property owner had actually requested that it be named after himself. So that connector road would be Zeppelak Drive. And also during that time, staff had the chance to work with the developer. Our engineers had an opportunity to work with their engineers and get pretty far advanced with the engineering on the site. Some of the preliminary development plans are actually included in the packet as well. There is some final engineering that needs to take place, so just some semantics. But we are still working through those right now, and obviously before anything could be built with respect to the building permit issuance and also to some of the site development standards. So item number 3 would be the ordinance approving the First Amendment to the annexation agreement between the Village of North Aurora and the Sten Zeppelak Trust.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lowry.
Yes.
Trustee Nedved.
Yes.
Trustee Salazar.
Yes.
Trustee Carroll.
Yes.
Trustee Curtis.
Yes.
Trustee Gately.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Item 4, Mike.
Item number 4 is an ordinance amending ordinance number 13-01-07-03, zoning and granting a special use as a plan unit development for commercial and multi-use for the property located west of Orchard Road, north of Tanner Road, and east of Deer Path Road in the Village of North Aurora.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lowry.
Yes.
Trustee Nedved.
Yes.
Trustee Salazar.
Yes.
Trustee Carroll.
Yes.
Trustee Curtis.
Yes.
Trustee Gately.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next, item 5, Jason.
All right, thank you. Item number 5 is part 1 of changes we're going to make to the village's purchasing policy. This was discussed at our June 20th Committee of the Whole meeting. So item number 5 is an ordinance updating the village code, which removes the newspaper requirement for advertising of bids. Currently, the code requires a notice of bid, at least one newspaper of general circulation within the village. We're proposing to change this and just say bids will be publicly in keeping with the Illinois Municipal Code in a manner outlined by the village's purchasing policy. Within the municipal code, there are no requirements for newspapers. They just say in a manner prescribed by ordinance. So by changing our ordinance, we can just define that within our purchasing policy.
Motion to approve?
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lowry.
Yes.
Trustee Nedved.
Yes.
Trustee Salazar.
Yes.
Trustee Carroll.
Yes.
Trustee Curtis. Trustee Gately.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 6, Jason.
All right, thanks. Item number 6 is part 2 to these changes. So these are the actual changes within the purchasing policy. Again, these were discussed and presented at the June 20th Committee of the Whole meeting. Just a quick summary of these changes. As I mentioned, we're getting rid of the local newspaper requirement, and we're changing that to all bids will be on the village's website, but then also prescribing some other ways, whether we use trade journals or websites. We put in those as secondary reasons, but the main way will be the website. We're updating the village administrator's purchasing authority from less than 15,000 to less than 25,000. We added language that the village may continue services with a vendor that it has an existing satisfactory relationship with. We're clarifying that any multi-year contracts, we're going to focus on the total value of the contract rather than annual. Within our current purchasing policy, we only focus on what the annual value of the contract is. So on this, we're looking at the full value now. Similar to what shows in the purchasing policy for aggregate purchases, we included language saying that there may be individual payments to a vendor that are under the village administrator's purchasing authority, but over time those might add up to over the authority. So we're saying that's okay, as long as they are unrelated in scope. They're just kind of services that accumulate and add up. we added some language that adds the finance department as just a second check to some of the bids and bid process. And then we updated and add limits for the credit card. Currently, the village's policy doesn't really limit, says what, the credit limits are. But historically, we've done department heads 10,000 and other supervisors have 5,000. So we're just putting this in writing. The new part that we're adding to this is related to donations. Recently, the village received a donation from a resident to use for public safety equipment. We really didn't have a policy as to what to do with this donation. So we took a look at it and added some language in there, just kind of defining if we receive a donation, what's the purpose for it, how are we going to account for it, who we will and won't accept money from, so things like that. So next time that this happens again, we have it kind of set in place.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Salazar,
Yes.
Trustee Carroll,
Yes.
Trustee Curtis, Trustee Gately,
Yes.
Trustee Lowry,
Yes.
Trustee Nedved.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Village President report, I don't have anything. Trustee comments?
I have a question for Steve. Any update on the Fox Valley Country Club paving program?
Yeah, actually.
It's going on 3 months.
Yeah. The dispute that's going on at the quarries are still happening, and John was able to give us an update at our staff meeting today, and it sounds like it's not really close yet to resolving itself. We're working with our contractor who has come up with a solution potentially that we have to start looking into, which is allowing them to use stone from another place. It would be at a cost to the village. We're at that point now where all the binder course is down, and the cost is, estimated at potentially another $20,000 to the village. But if we went that route, we might be able to actually continue the program and finish it. So that's where we're just getting that information very recent. So we're trying to figure out exactly what the cost would be to the village and what it would be. Our first concern was switching during a program as far as where you're getting your stone, is making sure that the stone meets all the criteria for the road program, because we don't want to put substandard material down. John said it sounds like everything would meet IDOT specs and that there would be no concern with where they're looking to get their stone from.
So they have no idea when they think they can get the stone from the original
Not from where they originally spec'd it out when we bid the
Do we have
project
any
out.
recourse? I mean, how can they just half pave half of a neighborhood and walk away like that? I mean, it's,
So we do have recourse to some degree. We've done this before. It's very rare. You can go through the process of liquidated damages, but that's only if they break the contract in any way. In this case, the substantial completion date for the project is until October. So when you bid these projects out historically, you give a several month window for the bidders to bid, because they're doing multiple projects at once, and that's how you're able to lock down pricing and everything, because they're able to spread out their work throughout the season. We were very fortunate that our program was flying. Like, it was going really fast in the beginning, and which was great. And then if it wasn't for this issue, it would probably be done at this point. But that's the issue. The issue is the contract still allows them to wait until October to have finished completion.
is there any issue with all this traffic driving over a one-layer road? Are we going to find out, years down the road that it was compromised from only being one layer for 3 months?
I mean, John can answer that question if I mess this up, but I mean, in theory, think of it this way. When a new subdivision comes in, they put binder course down, and the village does not accept that road until 1 year after it's paved. So that binder course is down sometimes for a couple years before they actually get to the final surface, and then the 1 year period starts. So right now, it's only been down for a month or so. So, we're probably okay at this point. I mean, John, do you have any concerns about that?
No, we would evaluate the pavement before they put down the final surface, just to see if there were any deflections in the existing one layer or binder course, and if there was something that was a problem or we identified something, it'd be something that they can either go back and patch that back in, or we just make the layer above a little bit thicker in that area.
Steve or John, is there any way you can, since we're going to have to wait a while, there's a lot of ridges, like steps that big. Could they put a little slope on it of something or another? I guess you're out of asphalt. You can't use that, can you?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of bumps, And
Yeah, at every driveway that hasn't had surface, there's
Streets,
probably
streets.
at the streets at the locations where they meet the curbs, or you're saying
Where they have, like last year's finished project comes into contact with this year's
Where they transition
project.
to the other
at the
road.
joints?
Corner of Pinehurst and Wingfoot, there's one going up into Pinehurst because it was done last year. There's one over there on Hammer and several other places I drive that I have to go like 2 miles an hour so I don't ruin my tires going over. I was just wondering if,
Yeah, if that's a concern, we could look into solutions. The thing that comes to mind immediately, I mean, we could potentially grind that down, and then when they come back to put surface, we'd have to grind it down to a
ridge.
vertical
Yeah.
type
I know
ledge that they could pave against.
one of the concerns that the board had at a previous meeting was the fact that there was a called punch list item. So whenever we have driveways that had a cutout and they put down dirt and stone to fill it, there was a few that were missed. So they were able to get enough asphalt to go back and finish the patching of those. There was a couple places where they transitioned new, there was at least one place Trustee Curtis had brought up, and they were able to go out there and have enough asphalt to patch the walkways where the street met the new ADA accessible ramp to go across the street at the crosswalk area. So Trustee Lowry, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about in some of the neighborhood, you'll already have the brand new road that has its full surface lift, and then you have the binder course on adjacent roads, so there's the drop, and then, or like you said, road programs from a normal road, there's always going to be that 2-inch drop from the binder course to any new fully surfaced street.
yeah, and there's no slope on it, so.
You know, I'm encouraged that there's an opportunity that arose. I mean, the fact that, John just brought this up this morning about the fact that, Geneva is trying to come up with solutions. And if it is a nominal fee, $20,000, that might not be, we're talking about a $3.1 million road program. So if that's what, but things like that, actually, that would be on my spending authority now. So we'd have to take a look at that. Take a look and say, okay, does this make sense? Is it good? Does it save us months of, agony of the streets not being done?
Let's just get this done ASAP. It's unsightly. There's horses all over my neighborhood. Where they planted that new grass, some people have weeds this big that are growing up. And it's been going on since April or May.
Yeah.
Whatever we could do to just, it's a quality of life issue at this point.
We talked about that at staff too. There was some concerns about the netting and the weeds growing up and popping up netting in areas. And I can tell you firsthand, it's not easy to maintain that stuff sometimes if it doesn't grow properly through the netting. So we're trying to get word out to the people who are having that issue to go ahead and, if your grass has been seeded for, several weeks, go ahead and pull the netting and just start mowing it. Once it hits a certain thing, you can start pulling your netting.
And what about the horses at the crosswalks? Is there some reason that they can't just pick those up? The sidewalks are all completed.
Yeah, that's
The streets
a
are
good
just,
point.
the only thing that's not done are the streets, so why can't they, because, as you know, I walk a dog, and it's just, I've moved some of them over just so I have a space so I can walk by with them. So is there a reason they can't pick them
Barricades are
up?
blocking the actual crosswalk?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't move them, yes, they're blocking the sidewalk to the street.
Okay.
So I think if I'm imagining it right, like where the curb meets the asphalt, there's like a 2-inch lip there on
there
some
is.
of the streets.
Yes.
And the reason that the contractor has the barricades there is just because they consider it a trip hazard at that particular location. So if somebody were to stub their toe and tumble, they're technically liable for that job site. So they try to keep the barricades out there just to make people aware.
Finish it, not leave it half done for 3 months.
Well, I would agree with Laura. I think we need to go with if it costs us 20 grand, because even if October's the liquidated damage dates, every contract has an exception for war, acts of God, strikes, and that's what this would be, right? I assume this contract has a provision that...
Well, if the contract specifies where they're getting their rock from, if it doesn't, then, they have the option of getting the rock somewhere else, I guess.
It would be, honestly, having gone through the liquidated damages process before here, and Kevin taught me through that process, it isn't just if you don't meet the standards of the contract, then you actually have to determine if there was any damage to the village. to actually liquidate and request funding. Then you have to calculate the dollar amount of damages to the
Well,
village.
no, actually, with liquidated damages, it works just the opposite. So you do liquidated damages because you're anticipating that it would be impossible to calculate damages accurately because the damages maybe aren't quantifiable in dollars and cents. And so the liquidated damages clause says, okay, this approximates what the damage might be. We're not going to try to figure it out because it's too difficult.
Sounds like the best option is just pay the extra money and get the rock.
I think we all
that's
agree
where-
on that, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, it was nice to hear that. I know Geneva's going through it in other places too, and we're not the only town. I mean, this is going on in other towns that have their road programs frozen right now. So it's good that at least there's an option. And the fact, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, the fact that the binder course is all down is, there's been road programs that we've had that have extended into middle, late summer that I can remember that this wouldn't even be at this level. The fact that they have smooth surface down, at least on all the roads, is something that we should be at least happy about. Because it could be worse. It could just be, the road could be just ground down without the binder course.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that if you're going to pay $20,000 extra to get it done, you wait until October, you have no guarantee that, and do we want to really go down this path and go through all of this, hassle? And, I mean, I would say no.
Yeah, I think John and I, that's the thing. We'll get our response from Geneva, get some hard numbers put down to it, and see what they can come up with, and then we'll sit down and figure it out.
Thanks, Steve.
Administrator's report.
I actually have a couple things on the agenda tonight. We just, right before this meeting, we had a beautification committee meeting. And one of the charges of the beautification committee is to create a beautification recognition program. And it's something that's been in our code for a while, so we finally got a program. I'm not necessarily, it's very basic here. This is just the outline of any generic program that we want to do for recognition. We created a generic outline of how the programs would run, basically leaving the committee the ability to fill in the blanks depending on the program specific. So for instance, what you'll see here is there's general purpose of like why we would do this, timing of like we'd have to set timing parameters, what the process would be for judging, and that would be done by the committee, but these are just the outlines, and then how we would recognize the winners. So in tonight's meeting, and just so you know, we've talked about a few different types of recognition programs. One would be just outdoor front yard landscaping. One was potentially for holiday lights for Halloween. One was for holiday lights for the Christmas season. So the holiday season's then. So at this point, all this is the committee focused today on a front yard program. And what we'd like to do, because we already have it in the newsletter coming out in a few weeks that we're doing this, but we want to make sure the board is aware of it before, I want you guys to be comfortable with everything that's happening. So the idea is people can nominate their neighbor or themselves and say, you know what, I take care of my front yard, and the committee will go out there, and we have judging criteria, and it's based on 3 categories, and they would give a score to everybody, and then essentially we would provide a reward for the people who win or score the highest. They would get certain gifts from the village, and then recognition at a board meeting. We're intending that to be September 19th. So this first year we've done it. We don't know how it's going to go, but after this meeting, we're going to start the advertising for it, via community sign, Facebook, website. Then the newsletter will come out a few weeks later. It's a very tight window because of the way the beautification committee met and lined up with the fact that it's the end of summer. So we have to judge everything basically by mid to late August. So that's the first thing. If you had any questions about that, let me know right now. We're calling it the Green Thumb program. That's what the choice was.
I like it.
And then the second item on the agenda is part of, with the beautification committee, when we started, we had some projects in the queue that we were just getting ready to work on. And so the nice thing about the beautification committee is the ability to kind of throw some ideas at them. Our police department has pretty sad landscaping in front of it right now. It's pretty desolate. It's a lot of mulch, maybe a couple half-dead shrubs. There's parts of areas that we ripped up dead shrubbery already, so it's, it's vacant. So just like we did with Village Hall, as you saw recently, John had his crews pull out some of the hedge and some of the bushes, and we started putting some plantings down. We're going to do the same at the police department. We're going to put some plantings down. But what we threw out at the committee was one of the ideas that came up in January when they first met was the idea of having the words North Aurora somewhere in a prominent location that when you drive into town, you see that this is North Aurora. One suggestion was in the middle of town, find a place near private property, but we just said, we have so much green space in front of the police department, and 31 is a 20,000 or so car a day road, so you have a high visibility of people coming off of 88 going through our town. So the idea was to put maybe in front of the police department, and the top, it doesn't have to be red or anything, but the top is just more of a natural bushes or flowers, a lot of maintenance that you have to do with that. The bottom is stone. So what the committee had decided to do was go with that bottom option, and we're not in a time rush for this, so we can do the plantings without the stone words North Aurora. But we are planning to go back to an upcoming meeting with the beautification committee and showing them some stone options, different types of flagstone, rock, whatever, and then having them pick that and then put North Aurora in the grass.
Yeah, I like that idea of the stone.
Run it by everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the stone as well.
I like the
I
flowers.
think it's kind of cheesy, personally, honestly. I mean, we paid all this money for beautiful signs all over the place, and this has a high potential for falling into disarray, or snow's going to cover it, or the flowers, might die, get eaten by bugs. We might have the R dead and everything else is still alive. I mean, I've seen these things before, and they just, to me, they look a little cheesy. I think there's other things maybe we should look at to do with the open space, but that's just my opinion.
Well, if it's flagstone, flagstone's like,
That was the concern that if the staff had a concern, it was anything natural requires a lot of pruning and a lot of maintenance. The stone obviously is also natural, but really, since Siebert, our current company, or any future landscaper that we hire is out there, they would just have to spray for weeds occasionally. We're also looking to see if we put flagstone or
And
something.
We also run into the aesthetics of, it's just a bunch of rocks out in front of the police station. I mean, we're trying to beautify it, and I don't see how just stone is beautifying it when we've got these beautiful entrance signs all over the village. I'd rather do something that's going to be more ecologically friendly than just have a bunch of rocks in the middle of the grass.
well, flagstone's got a nice appeal, I think. I mean, depends on the rocks. Flagstone, in my opinion, looks really nice. Not much, there's not a lot of maintenance to do with flagstone.
Well, it's interesting because if you look right above it, there's a big honking sign that says North Aurora Police Department. So now we have North Aurora Police Department with the words North Aurora right underneath it. It's a big redundancy.
I like the rock. I think it adds, it takes away from just the green space and adds some contrast. And we talked about the red with the shrubs, and just from a maintenance standpoint, I don't think it's worth it. But with the rock, you can possibly mow over it, and they can mow right over it, and it, like you said, if you spray it a couple times in the summer, it should be fine.
Yeah.
I've seen other municipalities where I like it. It can be done poorly and look cheap, and it can be done well with good stone and look very attractive. So, if it's done well with good stone, I think it's an attractive look, and just from a maintenance standpoint, I think it's a no-brainer.
I think the key is installing it, though. If it's not installed right, that'll just fall all over and pop out after one winter, so.
So that came up at our committee meeting
Yeah.
tonight, and that's why, one of the reasons why we didn't just say, oh, we're going to tell the board this is it for sure, is you kind of pick, if the board is okay with the stone, then you go back to our landscape company and say, show us what you can do with stone to make it look really nice and set it in place properly.
And how they install it, yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be
because there was
really
some
key.
concern, Mark, to your point, about do they create a mold? I mean, one person brought up putting up solid, like, lettering, just solid lettering into
Yeah.
the ground. And overall, the committee, I guess, decided to go with stone. But so then it said, okay, fine. Then how do you do a stone that's low maintenance, looks aesthetically pleasing, and doesn't shift or move or anything?
Yeah, I'm not sure you want to drive a mow over it, though. That might not be the best thing. But,
Or weed whack through it.
We'd whack around it.
yeah.
I mean, you can get really creative, and you can do, and just throwing this out there. I mean, in theory, it could be, I won't call it a mural, I don't know what you call it, but it could be like a stone, how they do like these, the beautiful walkways and stuff like that with the different, stone patterns.
You even got brick pavers that'll look like
But that's what I'm
limestone.
saying. It
That'll
doesn't
be
have
solid,
to be stone. It can
right.
be other things, and
Right.
it could even have. We can even enhance around the words North Aurora to make it look more aesthetic.
I see what you're saying.
Like, we just wanted to see if this actually
Yeah, that might be.
works as an option, and I think because the committee wants it to come back, we can always see if there's additional enhancements we can do to it. I mean, obviously, the price just goes up, but truth be told, to Trustee Curtis's point, when we do this, obviously, we want the board to be happy too, that it looks good.
I like the idea, whether it's stone or flowers. I thought the red was flowers. You're saying it's bushes?
It is. It could be flowers, but what I'm saying is in some towns, they'll just do it with shrubbery. It'll just be green shrubs. But it's hard. You have to maintain and prune them constantly.
Well, and what happens if one shrub dies, and then you
Exactly.
gotta, it's not easy.
No,
the thing
either,
about stone, it
I'm
never
real,
dies.
it doesn't matter to me. I like the idea of advertising our town and distinguishing it from Aurora. That's one of my big things here, is that, just the
likes
other
that.
day, somebody said, oh, is that the north side of Aurora? I go, no, it's a completely different town, and so, that's why I like the idea, so I'm for it.
So move ahead with the idea.
Yeah,
then.
we'll come up with some stone ideas for the committee and then bring it back.
And you can frame those stones with a metal flower bed border thing, too. I know somebody that has one in their yard. It's real solid and strong, and you'd have to make the letters out of the metal, but still that would.
Metal edging is what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
honestly, ultimately, depending on the price of it, it all comes back to village board approval, depending on the price anyways. So if it's not something we have budgeted and it comes back, a few $1,000s is one thing, but it comes back 15, 20,000, it's like, okay, well, we can always try to get some more feedback on what options there are on the prices and see how you like them. The last thing we did with the beautification committee tonight was give them a questionnaire, and the idea was to try to generate some new ideas, come up with ideas for the community of where you want to see things beautified, and give us some thoughts so that we can consider them for future budget consideration when we have our conversations with the board. Trustee Carroll, at one point in that meeting, it got brought up, another community sign even got brought up tonight, and the idea of putting one on the west side of town. So, some of those ideas, they can range in price from $5,000, $40,000, and they could be, but the point being is those are the types of things I think we're looking for the committee to come up with to bring to the board for consideration.
Speaking of recognition and identification and recognizing our little town, I've said this before, and it's half in jest, but there's something to it, too. The letters on the sign in the middle of the town need a blue border to match all the other things. It looks so much more attractive, and it actually has the words stand out better, I think. If we could somehow outline those white letters on the sign up there, I mean, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so if I get it, our 10 welcome signs, currently 9 because one's being fixed, you have the letters, and on the white lettering, we have that blue outline
Right.
on it. And what you're saying is the 2 signs that we have here on State Street, which would be in front of Village Hall and the community board, those signs are solid white letters. And I'm going back in my head on why. I know that when they looked at, and I don't remember if it was the color of the stone, I know we brought it to the board for discussion. I think the white was picked because it stood out the most against the backdrop. I don't know if we could.
I think that was in the beginning, and
Okay.
then when we changed all the entrance signs, actually they were all white too. In fact, they were I think the north was dark and you
Yeah,
couldn't
at one
read
point the north was blue,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, and then the blue blended in with the dark gray. And so then we started, like you said, and we started outlining them.
Well,
If
just
that's
a
something
thought.
the board wants us to do, we can take a look at it.
I could get up there with some patterns tape, just tape it around it.
Well,
John will just have somebody stand behind you with another brush.
No paint, just the tape.
Oh, just
blue
the tape.
The tape.
well, while we're on the topic of the entry signs, I know power is an issue, but I would still love at some point to see our entry signs illuminated. Whether it's solar power or somehow, I think that'd make a
Shining
quite,
up on it, you mean?
yeah, so you can see it at night. You know, you can't see them at nighttime.
Well, aren't you, one of your projects going to be to landscape those at some point?
Yeah, we actually had, and I have to look in previous budgets, and I think it's in this year's budget too. We had money to landscape and/or light the signs. Lighting to do it there's definitely more technology now than there was probably 4 or 5 years ago when we were looking at it at first. It used to be real expensive, like $3,000-$4,000 a sign to put like a big solar panel out there, but I guarantee it's down in price now. Of course, who knows now, but with inflation. But I mean, John, that's something we can easily look at.
If we're just talking about a wish list, I'm just going to throw this out. Wouldn't a fountain be lovely in front of the police department?
Water feature.
Yes, a water feature of some kind.
Rippling water.
Do you have to maintain that, or can it just be stone? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it has to be water with
Have a
stone.
waterfall?
Stone waterfall.
Yeah, like a fountain or waterfall. That's probably really expensive. But I just thought like a water element, and yeah. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out while I had the opportunity.
Good idea.
I'm just curious, your water fountain idea, would it be in front of the building in the grass area that we're talking about with the stone?
Yes.
Okay.
And what, you just park and go visit it, or?
You can pull up, have your lunch, enjoy the water,
Listen to the
go
water
home.
bubble-
Yeah, exactly.
bubble over.
Yeah, a little calming, white noise at the police station.
Does
It's all
the
good.
beautification committee have authority for an
I think it would look
$80,000
beautiful.
fountain?
No,
Put a fountain in addition to the stone and
The
make it look very nice.
beautification committee is a recommendation. They're advisory board. So ultimately, what they do is, I thought you were being serious, Mark. I'm giving a full speech about like how the funding for it works.
I was just
and-
kidding, because we just went from like a $2,000 or $3,000 project to like an
Yeah.
$80,000 project, but,
A fountain's $80,000?
I'm picturing
Are you just
some of it
joking?
fading.
well, for the fountain?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
It'd be
fountains are-
extremely expensive, I think.
Fountains are
$80,000.
fountains are really expensive.
Okay, well, I just
But you know
throw
what?
it out there. I don't know how much money it is.
I'll
Just asking the
summarize-
question.
Aren't we doing that here, though? We're doing that here, right?
Not
Didn't-
a fountain. But I'll summarize just in this sense. The good thing is this: it's these conversations with beautification committee. The whole idea was to do this, and that was to generate ideas and projects with the board. Committee gives some recommendations, some thoughts. The board says, you know what, staff, we love it. It's 100,000. It's 10,000. Put it in the budget, and then we work towards it. So.
Well, here's one for you, since we're on the
okay,
subject. I think 8 years ago, when I first got sworn in, we were talking about burying power lines
Yes.
on 31. Is there, like, ever any chance that the state's ever going to come in and bury the power lines along 31?
I can't see the state doing that because of the expense. I mean, years ago, last time we looked, it was around 50,000 a pole to bury it. We looked a couple years ago to bury the pole in front of Village Hall. One of the thoughts that we had is when the village replaces the water main on Route 31,
Yes.
that would be the time to look at it because, and that water main is getting old, so it's on the radar of a project to do. In theory, your best bet is to do all the trenching at the same time because you've already opened the ground, and that's one of your huge expenses. And then once it's open, maybe you can put the conduit down. When we met with ComEd years ago, one of the other thoughts and concerns they have, it's done. I mean, towns do it. It's not impossible. They always have to find a reconnection point to the actual buildings. And so one of the thoughts I threw out, and I know nothing about electricity, so the idea was if you bury it along 31 in certain sections, could you not reestablish service underground to the existing poles off of 31? So for instance, maybe one of the thoughts is, as we start to look at those projects, you say, okay, all the power lines from, I'm just going to throw out a street, from 56 down to John Street, maybe there's 20 poles. You say, okay, bury all those along 31, but any of the poles on Marvo and John that are actually in from the street, they stay. They're not on the road. But then the reconnection point is they simply put and not simply, but they run the electric to the existing pole still that works to the buildings. So they don't have to worry about burying all of those poles. That was a thought to save money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, when is the state going to come in and repave 31? Is there any chance
Well, the
of
paving
doing
won't have any relevance. It'll be the water main project to the village. Because
But if we're going to tear up for the water main, wouldn't we do that in conjunction with tearing up 31 at the same time? If they're going to ever repave the road?
So your logic is right. That's what we typically do for our programs. When we own the roads, a lot of times we'll look to see if water main needs to be replaced. At the same time, we're going to rip it up. In this case, John, the state's schedule for
It's not in their multi-year plan, and that's 5 years out. So for the next 5 years, nothing's programmed.
Well, because
John, did you ever tell them?
my point is, like years ago, we talked about the lane diet or whatever they call it down 31. I mean, here, if you're talking about wish list items to beautify 31, making that a 2-lane with the center like they have up by the county court or county clerk's
Geneva,
office
yeah.
up there, with the power lines buried, I mean, that would make a huge difference with our area along 31.
We looked into a road diet a couple of years ago,
Thank you.
and we're not done with the fact that we can always re-look at it again. At the time we looked at it, Batavia, Geneva had been talking about doing one. Our section of 31 has more traffic, to my knowledge, than going further north. So it actually drops off precipitously after Moose Heart Road. So there is this, and it's because of 88. That's the on and off of 31.
Right.
And this is more at Mike's alley, but when we looked at it with Housley Levine, I think years ago, they said it's in our comp plan, I believe, and it says that road diets are typically 15,000 cars a day is kind of the cutoff, and at last I looked, we're at 18 to 20. So the issue is the traffic. If you get a backup on 88 and everyone gets off on 31, which happens once every 6 weeks or so, you'll get a massive backup. If you cut those 2 lanes down, 4 to 2, it really does snarl. So I'm not saying you're right though. The biggest problem with 31 has always been the lack of right of way. So how do you get more right of way? You have to either acquire it from private property owners, or like you said, you steal it from the roadway by shortening the road.
John, did you, I mentioned it to you, did you ever contact the state and tell them about the condition of that stretch of the road between Oak Street and, between Airport Road and State Street? I'd mentioned that, and you said you were going to call them, and then when you did, they told you it was 5 years away? Or?
They don't have it in their plan to do anytime soon. So
They redid north of Moose Heart Road.
right.
Why didn't they just come on down a few more blocks?
Yeah, it would have made sense. I honestly have no idea how the state selects which sections of road they're going to do.
Because it's really bad.
Yeah.
The surfaces.
Yeah. We get complaints on 31 because people think it's our road.
Yeah, we all want the lines buried, so, and it makes sense to do it along with the water main.
Anything else? Steve, anything?
No, but so that there is a actual time frame to that discussion, seriously, about power lines. One of the things that the village will be doing in the future is we're eventually going to be doing a flow study, which I mentioned, I think, in a few of my emails to the boards. Part of that will help us establish the infrastructure we'll need in the future. And as part of not just that study, there's other projects that we know are down the line. And what we're trying to do is create a comprehensive program. Not that we don't have a program in place we do, to do capital projects, obviously, but we want to really take a look at our water infrastructure. And then we know our water rates are extremely low comparatively to everybody's around us. We need to start figuring out how much our big projects down the line are going to cost and how we're going to fund them. So that'll be something, Jason, John, myself will be working on, is actually coming up with almost a rate study at some point to say, okay, in the next 10 years, we have $10 million worth of water projects that have to be done. and that will cost this amount of money. This will be the way that we can fund it, partially by rate increases, partially by, revenues, whatever. But that's what we have to work on, and that's what's coming up. And so that's where things like these massive projects, like Route 31's water main is a massive project. It's multi-phased, it's super long. And to do it, the excavation, there's parts of that road, I think, that are 13 feet. The main is under 13 feet of road, or 13 feet of ground. So, we need to start coming up with some big ticket items to bring back.
I think
to
it's a
the board.
wooden main, too.
Oh, God.
It is.
No, I think he's right. I think part
Is
of
it
it's still
really?
wooden. Yeah.
A wooden main.
Yep. Anything else, Steve?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Department reports. Chief?
Just a couple of things. Thank you, Mayor. We're happy to announce that our community picnic's going to be finally back on this year after a 2-year COVID hiatus. We've already secured a bounce house, dunk tank, DJ. We're going to give away free hot dogs, face painter, balloon artist, tours of the squads, and also our police department. And another thing, tomorrow starts our body-worn camera training. The power users will use them for the first 2 to 3 weeks until they feel comfortable to train the officers on the department. And I would say, hoping by mid-August, it's fully implemented and ready to go.
The date for the picnic?
August 20th to Saturday from 12 to 4.
All right. Thank you.
Chief, how do the officers feel about the body cameras? Are they?
Oh, we're excited. There's just a lot of, because in the law, if we're interacting with somebody, they can tell us to turn it off. So basically, the officer's going to have to do some narration explaining the suspect, the victim, whatever. They want us to shut it off, why, and then we have to shut it off.
Anybody else? Okay, motion adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 All right. Have a good night.